All right, good afternoon, everyone. So, last half of the last day. We'll get through this. I am Steve Tieland. I am the Senior Director of Corporate Security Operations at Pegasystems. So, SIEM, all your logs, infrastructure, firewalls, all that fun stuff that we cover. So, today we're going to go over our journey that we took. So, we'll describe how we define data observability, how we planned and how we deployed Cribl, migrate, our next phase, how we've grown, where we are now and where we're going. And then hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So the definition that we're going to use for data observability today is proactively ensuring data is fresh, complete, and accurate to prevent downtime and build stakeholder trust. We want to make sure we're getting all the data, it's complete, it's accurate, and we're not really having any downtime. So pretty much exactly what that means. So before we had Cribl, back in 22, we were using Splunk. Our data was growing every year. We didn't know how much data we were really collecting. We didn't really get a good size of what was coming in. We knew what was going out to Splunk. That data was increasing every year exponentially. Two reasons caused this. One, I just took over the security operations and found out we weren't logging what we were supposed to log. And then second, as you start building that up, you just keep finding more and more sources. So our license went for 250 gigs a day to 500 to 800 to 1 terabyte in the matter of 2 years. Finance really loved me, and that was never a good conversation. So that's where we were, and we were like, we need something to improve this. So we ended up looking at Cribl. Came recommended, we saw some demos, and at this point, just keeping this in the time realm, 22, Cribl was just there. It only had Stream, and it was only on-prem. And then you'll see how that played out for us. So our thought, we're just going to deploy Stream. We're going to add in filtering and control our data volume. It's just going to happen, right? We're just going to do that, and we'll be all set. Of course, it's not always that easy. When we actually put all of our data through Cribl that we were sending, we realized we were actually sending over 2 terabytes to our Splunk heavy forwarder. We had no idea how much we actually built out in regex expressions in conf files. Were they accurate? Were they not? Our biggest easy way that we migrated is we really just took all those regex, threw them in the pre-processing of our pipelines. And that got us to an equal. That's where we started from. Then we added Cribl Packs, which added more filtering, and then we removed some regex as we started to learn the Cribl Pack and actually get a much more better definition. So once we had Cribl, we knew we had 2.2 terabytes going in and 800 gigs going out to Splunk. So we already saved a couple hundred gigs just by adding those packs in on top of the formatting that we were doing in the filtering. So now that we knew our data, we actually knew where it was going. We were doing the Cribl Packs, awesome. Our biggest data sources, Palo, Zscaler, CrowdStrike. There's a lot of redundant data in all those sources, and we were able to filter a lot of that out. We also we got 2 other benefits from going with Cribl. One, we put a worker group down by each one of our Palo firewalls, and then Cribl would dedupe for us. So we didn't have to worry about any duplicate logs coming from the Palos anymore. And then we also enriched with CrowdStrike. At the time, we added the host name in with the AID because CrowdStrike didn't provide that. They do now, but it's also 2.5 years later. So now that we got Cribl running, our data is under control. It's the first time I went back to finance and said, I don't need more ingest. into Splunk. And actually, we used those numbers to show that Cribl essentially paid for itself without us having to increase our ingest. So now we really wanted to understand Cribl, what it's doing, how it's working, get more. And we also did a big change with CrowdStrike. And I don't know, we were just pulling over their alerts and stuff before, but we really wanted Falcon Data Replicator with FDR, which pulls all the CrowdStrike logs into your platform. To do that, CrowdStrike basically writes the data to an S3 bucket, and then Cribl would pull it. It does take a little bit of time, but that's when we learned that you really need the leader. The leader is really involved in this process. It's not like a worker node that's receiving. The leader has to notify the worker that, hey, there is new data there, and then later go get it. So if you lose the leader, you're not pulling any of that data, and that was probably our most critical data source. So again, we're like, okay, no leader, no CrowdStrike logs, not good. So what do we do? How do we fix this? Where do we go? Turns out Cribl has a solution on-prem for highly availability for the leader node. And here's the design. I'm not going to go all the way through all of this. It's actually a lot more complicated than what I thought it really needed to be. You know, you have to pull the Git. We tried this for 2 months-ish. We tried it ourselves. We tried it with support. We tried it again with support. We tried it again ourselves, always tweaking little things. I think the closest we got is we would fail over, the other leader would come up, but it wouldn't have the full config. It just never worked for us. So we're like, we need something else. Well, thankfully, in 23, the first CriblCon took place. I was there and learned all about Cribl.Cloud. And we're like, you know, we can put the leader in Cribl.Cloud. So that's what we did. Again, the problem, leader, not HA. The challenge, configuring HA. We couldn't get it done. And the result, we had no failover. If we lost the leader, we were not getting our CrowdStrike logs. So it made the decision to go to Cribl.Cloud pretty easy. We just reworked our licensing, turned our ingest into credits, so it was the same. But now we just put that leader up in the cloud. Cribl takes care of keeping it highly available for us. We were really good with all this trying to do the HA of pulling the leader config. So we just pushed that right up to the leader in the cloud. That didn't really take a lot. I think we spent more time just getting the firewall rules in place because obviously the destinations and then that changed. So got Cribl Cloud, replicated our on-premise leader configs, sent those to the cloud, had the firewall rules. Then we just pointed all the workers. And we originally started with all the workers being on-prem. The only thing that was in the cloud initially was just the leader node. And then we decommissioned the on-prem leader. So we did get our high availability. We did get simplified management. Now the leader is getting updated on its own. We would have to still, upgrade our worker nodes. Faster delivery, we turned around and put workers in the cloud closer to our cloud sources as well. We didn't have to, there's no reason to pull all of our logs all the way on-prem to push them all the way up to Splunk Cloud. So we just kept everything out of our internal network for those logs. So we did gain for that. So now we're in cloud, we're hybrid, we're improved, we're getting our data faster, but we needed to, always worried, right? You do that conversion from on-prem ingest for us to cloud credits. What am I using in cloud credits? How am I spending these? Am I using too much? Am I going to run out? So we looked at the FinOps Center. This was the FinOps Center in 23. Not a lot of detail here, and there's really no drill downs. So you could see what you were using on a month basis, and that's about it. In fact, we actually onboarded a new set of logs from S3, AWS S3. They actually had, I think, more than a year of logs in that S3 bucket. We really only wanted the new ones, but we misconfigured our worker group to auto-scale. Let's just say we spent about 2 months of credits in a weekend. It did pull all those logs very, very fast, and we had no issues with that, but the issue was we didn't actually want them. So we were told by our Cribl sales engineer on our monthly check-ins that, did you mean to do this? And we're like, no, we didn't even know. So we fixed it. Thankfully, we've been running under, so we've kind of balanced back out. But this is the FinOps now, and then obviously in the keynote, you saw that the FinOps actually gets even better, much, much more detailed, and we're definitely going to take advantage of that going forward. So when we go forward, we're going to go down to the data source and really make sure that each worker is really sending its data. There's actually a session right after this in the other room that's going to cover that, so that'll be a good session. So we're running, now we're in Cribl.Cloud, we're pulling our data. What's next? In my mind, what's next? Okay, let's start moving data to different sources. But that, of course, gets interrupted that you're going to do a SIEM migration. Now, if you were here in the last session, they did a SIEM migration to CrowdStrike. We did the same thing. It was very, very, very close. Different on how we were set up, but we went first to just totally replace our Splunk infrastructure that we had on premise. So replace our heavy forwarders with workers. Honestly, we did that fairly quick. We would just deploy the worker nodes down there, always in a pair, and we would just point the logs at the worker group, and it would just start sending instead of the heavy forwarder. Those were easier. We had, at the time, probably around 120 Splunk universal forwarders. We replaced those with Edge. Took us a little longer because the initial Edge did not support auto upgrades on Windows. So we did it for our Linux servers and waited, and then we just did it, and then Cribl caught up, and now they auto update. So we got there. So once we had the plumbing, now all Cribl. So Cribl is our complete plumbing for logs at this point. How we get them, where they go, and that. We started the SIEM migration. We completely abused the POC with CrowdStrike because we literally just sent all the data, about 1 terabyte, to CrowdStrike right at the POC. And we just slammed it with logs. By the way, it did pretty good, except it didn't parse everything correctly. So as the last presentation kind of talked about, it was more, time. Time is a big thing. Make sure it's formatted correctly. Everything's in UTC. Have the time. We also learned how we could pass some static variables that we don't want the CrowdStrike parser to parse, but you can send them through and they will be indexes. So we learned that. Lots of work directly with CrowdStrike, but lots of work that we could just pull into Cribl, into that specific destinations pipeline and just tweak it. Didn't have to touch Splunk. Our logs are continuing to just flow to Splunk with zero interruption. So as of now, we actually have, what's today's date? For 2 more weeks, we have Splunk. We're just going to turn off the destinations at the end of the month. The security team hasn't been using Splunk directly for the last 4 months. Everything's been done in CrowdStrike. The business was still using Splunk. They're now in CrowdStrike. So the SIEM migration, we took our time. Thankfully, we actually had a full year to do it. I got lucky on the planning and the way the contracts worked out. So I'll take that anytime that we can. So now we're looking at, we have our centralized management. All of our edge nodes we can manage. A lot of our cloud stuff, auto upgrades for us. So we can just look at the logs and we can filter on the logs. So the next piece that we are going to do is, what I originally wanted to do before the SIEM migration, right? Anything that's forensics. It doesn't need to be there for an alert, doesn't need to be there for a detection. It's more of an after investigation. That's going to go up to S3, and then we'll use Cribl Search for it. We're going to send the data where it needs to be. It'll be the first time that our ingest will go down. Of course, we will use more Cribl credits, but the ingest into the SIEM will go down. And we'll continue to tweak that as we go forward. All right. Thanks, everyone.